everyone. I'm Julia Peltier with United Way Marion Wallingford. And again, thank you for joining us today for our virtual Day of Caring all-day event. It's our first time doing it virtually, and we just hope everyone is enjoying it as much as we are. And if you'd like to see more of these virtual sessions, we will be happy to put something else together in the future. And today we are very excited to have our own Steve Knight share his skill and knowledge on press release writing. He's an incredible writer who has such an amazing way with words, so I know everyone will be able to take away some type of key tips and tricks to help with their own press release writing. And I pass the session on to Steve.
Thank you, Julia, and welcome, and thank you for attending. As she said, my name is Steve Knight, and I am a volunteer at the United Way, as well as the Spanish Community of Wallingford and a few other nonprofits that are located in Wallingford. I also write a bi-weekly column for the Record Journal that appears every other Sunday, which is how I've polished my my writing over the 7 years that I've been doing it. Here's how I'd like to structure the meeting. I'd like to go through the entire lesson that I have planned first. I'm hoping to get it all done in 45 minutes. And that's, when I was asked to do this, I figured 45 minutes would be enough. Once I got going on this, I had more than I thought. We'll see how this goes. But that's why I want to, at the end of it, I would love to take any questions that anybody has. And we're all busy. If you're done and you don't have any questions, just go right ahead and leave the Zoom call. Of course, you're welcome to stay. As far as I'm concerned, I'd love to answer questions. And thank you, Julia. She's my technical assistant. You have two documents that were emailed to you. One is a set of notes. I will be doing the entire lesson from these notes that you have right in front of you. So I thought that might help so that you wouldn't have to take notes. You'll be here. You'll have right in front of you most of what I'm going to say anyway. The other document is an inverse triangle, and I'll refer to that at the appropriate time. I hope all of this works for you. I'm not a teacher by profession, but I hope you'll find this interesting. So I might as well get started. What is a press release? Why is it called a press and a release? Now, of course, when up until about 25 years ago, a press release was strictly for the print media, whether it's magazines, newspapers, or whatnot. Obviously, since then, there's all kinds of other media available besides a newspaper, but it's still called a press release. The goal is the same, and that's the release part. It's spreading the word about a new event, a new product, something you want the public to know about. And most of the time, a press release covers something that is brand new. And for most of us, what press releases are for is to advertise events. And so I'm going to be coming at it pretty much from that point of view, as if we had an event. In fact, I have two examples of press releases that do just that. Now, a press release, believe it or not, it has a formal structure. And journalists, or anybody that receives press releases and deals with them as a media person, expects that format to be followed. most of the reason is that they get swamped with them. They get bombarded with them. And if you ignore the format, they most likely won't read it. Some of them have, Maria, you're already yawning. This is not a good sign. Anyway.
I was sneezing.
At any rate, they won't read it. The object of this whole thing is to get them to read it, to get them interested in what you're talking about, and for them to, in turn, write about it, advertise it, and so forth. Now, a press release is not the whole story. And one of the most important things you must remember is it should not be more than one page. Now, I've read press releases, good ones, that run into 2 pages. But again, keep in mind that your reader gets a lot of these and may not have the time to really absorb all that you want to put down. It isn't the whole story. It's an introduction. It's a way to get the reader interested in the event or the product or whatnot. In this case, we'll call it event, that you want them to know about and you want them to tell the public about. You have to pique their interest very early. That goes for anything that you write. Really, seriously, anything that you write that the public reads, you want to capture their interest right away. And the other thing I want you to remember is you want to convey enthusiasm. If it's all boilerplate, if you don't convey excitement, it's not likely your reader is going to, the recipient of your press release is going to share in that excitement. So by all means, try to convey enthusiasm. Now, 2 things to remember. Don't brag. Don't overstate the case. Don't brag about that your organization is the greatest thing that's come along since than the invention of canned beer. What you want to be sensible. You can praise your organization, you can and do that, but don't use hyperbole. Don't overdo it, because if you do, you start losing your believability. So be honest, be enthusiastic, and play it straight. And remember, you're not there to tell the whole story. You're there to give them a really interesting taste of what you're talking about. Now, as in a lot of writing, there are 5 W's, and I'm sure most of you have heard: who, what, where, when, why. Those are the 5 things you want to make sure you cover in your press release. Now, you know your audience. Again, I say you want them to want more. And if you're talking to a print reporter or even anybody in media that is going to end up writing a script for a television news broadcast or an article in a local paper, you want to write the story for them. The best press releases, the ones I'm the most proud about, are the ones that turn into newspaper articles, and they quote a lot of the stuff verbatim right from the press release. You want to help them write it. The easier, the better it is, the faster that they can get done with an article and submit it for publication, and that's your goal. Of course, you want to leave them needing more information and wanting more information, especially wanting more. Again, we're trying to create interest. So it's not just, and when you're doing an event, you're not, keep in mind that you're not just advertising an event. You're creating a marketing piece. You're marketing the event, you're marketing the organization. If it's a product, obviously you're marketing the product and the company it produces, or that produces it. So with the new media, as I mentioned earlier, you want to think about how you're going to distribute your press release. Sending it to every paper you've ever heard of is a waste of time. You really want to concentrate on local or statewide media if you're doing an event. A product is a different story, but again, you want to know who you're really trying to reach. If you build a new kind of lawnmower, you would want to tailor your message to, I don't know, companies that sell lawnmowers. Now, in case of events, of course, most of the events we're going to have are going to be local, sometimes statewide. So you want to concentrate on that. Distribution in a product world is a whole different thing. I can't really get into it because I've never really engaged in anything but local event press releases. But here's a couple of hints. One in particular, if possible, find out the person in the organization you are emailing who is going to be the one assigned to write the story. If there is it's worth calling a newspaper, it's worth calling a TV station, telling them where and to whom you should address your press release. That obviously doesn't apply to social media posts. Those go on your social media and off they go. But if you're trying to get a story out that you want others to relay, then you want to try to personalize who gets it. If you can't, you can't, but it's worth trying to get the right human beings. If you're able to write a press release and to a specific person or specific people, like let's say you have 5 or 6 or 10 people to whom you want to send this press release, and let's assume for the time being that most of it's going to be email, then it probably is well worth a phone call, a follow-up phone call to say, did you receive my email? Can I provide you with more information? That again, if you can make contact with that reporter, it's another way to show enthusiasm, and they also it's a personal way for them to get involved in what you're trying to tell them about. Now, here are just a few style points. Avoid exaggeration. I told you a couple of minutes ago, if you overdo it on that, you lose credibility like crazy. So try to avoid exaggeration. Excitement, yes. Exaggeration, no. Now, second, be organized. Get to the point. If you wander around, if you wander around the field, picking daisies, verbally, speaking, your reader is going to lose interest in a heartbeat. Then the chance of them being interested declines significantly. This is a personal one for me. Avoid business buzzwords. Stakeholders is my particular. Stakeholders is a word that is so overused that it almost has no meaning anymore. sometimes you have to, especially in your particular business, but make sure that the person that's reading your press release gets what you mean by that. The other one is be careful with acronyms. IRS, that's, initials. Everybody knows IRS, but ABCDE, and it means something. People don't register. If you use acronyms, you're going to lose them in a heartbeat. I fall into this trap from time to time, but I'm going to tell you what not to do about using cliches. Paying the piper, March of history, hook, line, and sinker. All the things that we do use all the time. In a press release, you lose impact when you put in stuff like that. So those are just some style points. Now we'll move on to creativity. I hadn't really thought of this until I did some research on how to write a press release, frankly. Because most press releases are emailed, we have a magnificent opportunity to use other media to accompany it. If you've got a short video, if you have a small short slideshow, if you have a couple of photos, those really punch up a press release, and they provide more information. But that draws interest in this day of visual learning. This can be very, very useful. It's not required, but it is very useful. One more thing before we get on to the actual press release writing. If your first press release does generate media coverage, consider writing a second one. Now, it has to be based on the media coverage that you have already gotten. It has to be a little bit different approach. I can, for one, let's say, for instance, the United Way, the SCOW is having a virtual 5K. I'll be showing that press release to you shortly. It's not until October 16th through 18th. We've submitted a press release, which we hope will be, will generate, a print article in the Record Journal. If we do get that, then we might want to follow up and tell them how we're progressing, or what you've heard from other people, and how many people have joined, and how much money has the 5K raised. That could generate an even better story, or a second story, or a reminder story closer to the time of the event. So that's well worth exploring. Now, as I mentioned before, the press release is a formal document, and there is a formal process for writing it. Now, the first thing I want to do is have you look at the graphic of an inverse triangle that you should have received from Julia earlier today. This is only one of many examples, but it serves to tell you that there is a process, and there is a fairly strict format for press releases, and you start with the most important information first, and slowly but surely you get down to the less important information. So you want to concentrate your efforts on the things that have the most impact. Now, you can put that aside because now I'm going to immediately deviate from that a little bit, but it's basically what I'm about to talk about. The first, before we get into the 5 steps, the 5 parts, I should say, of the press release, there are a couple of hints I would offer you. Start, if possible, put the press release on your organization's letterhead. Now, there are a couple of reasons for that. One, the reader will instantly know who it's from. It'll be right there in front of them, right at the top of the page. Plus, there's going to be important basic information as to what the organization, about the organization that is sending this press release. This way, you won't have to do that later. I mean, in other words, what I'm saying is, in the case of most companies, they have the name of the company. They have an address, phone numbers, sometimes email addresses, website addresses. That's all stuff you're going to have to put into that press release at some point. If it's already right at the top of the page, you're good to go, and that gives you a little more time, a little more space to write a little more information. Customarily, and I think I don't do this all the time because most of the press releases I write are for that, and mostly we're trying to capture the attention of the Record Journal. So there are times when I don't write the city and state. I do write the date of the release. That's important. But the city and state, I mean, if it's the Spanish community of Wallingford, I think the Record Journal is going to recognize where that is. And I think the United Way of Meriden and Wallingford, pretty much the Record Journal knows exactly who to talk to and what their territory is. But nevertheless, if you say you were sending a press release to the Hartford Courant, then you would want to do that. Just like a newspaper article does. Now, the first and very important thing you're going to write is the headline. This is, from everything I've read, this is the most important thing you should spend time on. You're competing with many other stories, so you want to grab your reader right away. Again, consider the number of press releases that reporters, newspapers, TV stations, whatnot, even radio stations get in a given day. And you want to make sure yours is read. So the headline is something you want to make sure is catchy. If you're emailing the press release, the subject line of your email is also important. Again, they can't even read the headline until they open the attachment, but they will read the subject line. So spend some good time on both of those. Brevity. This is a headline. That's all it is. It shouldn't be more than 1 or 2 sentences, but it does convey the enthusiasm you have, the excitement that you're trying to generate about your event or your product. That's what you're trying to do. And these 1 or 2 sentences, those 5, 10, 12 words are going to be what you need. This is your first impression to a reporter. Think of it that way. It's your first impression, and you know how important first impressions are when you're meeting another person. Same thing with your press release. Again, from my research, the larger the audience you're trying to reach, again, if let's say it's a it's a product your company has made or you have designed, and you want people to know about it. The larger the audience, the better this headline has to be. If you were trying to interest the New York Times into publishing a story, you really have to spend time on this headline, because they get thousands of them. Now, that's the headline. The next is the introduction. That's one paragraph, and it introduces the topic. Now, let's concentrate on announcing an event. This is the place to answer the questions when and where. When and where, very important. You want to get up front, and of course, if you haven't used the title of your event in the headline, that's what this is a place where you want to put it. It only should be 3 or 4 sentences and I'm going to say it again, you get to the point. Don't pile all kinds of verbiage in there. They are looking for information. I've done bullet point stuff, and I'll show you one where there was so much information to give. I used bullet points. I wouldn't do it with my introductory paragraph, but that's 3 or 4 sentences. That's it. Now, the body of the press release, and Julia, if you would put up the SCOW press release. Thank you. Now, this one. I was much more careful following the format, and a couple of reasons for that. One, it was after I did a lot of my research, so I started using what I had learned. Not only that, but you see there are 2 other companies involved in the SCOW virtual 5K, and I wanted this to be as professional as the stuff that they would produce. So in the body of the press release, you can see the introductory paragraph begins with chemical manufacturers, and notice I've put in the kickoff time and the ending time of the virtual 5K, the name of it, and the reason that these 2 manufacturers came to SCOW with the idea of sponsoring this event. Then in the body, the next 1, 2, say 3 paragraphs there. In the body of the press release, remember, it's a formal document and you have 1 page. So you have to be very judicious with your words. It's worth it to spend time on it. Stay focused. You're trying to provide information and develop interest. You'll see that the rest of the information, it goes in this second, mostly into that first of the body of the press release pages or paragraphs. This is where the who, the what, and the why are answered. Then you've got all your information in those 4 paragraphs. You could stop right there, and at least the reader knows exactly what you're writing about. But now here are a couple of points I want to make. I love to put in quotes. I think quotes are fun to read. I think they convey the kind of enthusiasm. They give information at the same time. They personalize what otherwise could be, blank slate kind of thing. They humanize it. So I like to put in quotes. And truth be told, I make most of them up. Now I know that sounds phony, but it isn't, because one, you're the one that's writing the press release. And it follows the press release information better than if you try to get people that aren't in your organization, or that are in your organization, that really, some in large organizations, that they wouldn't even know what you're talking about, and they'll produce some boilerplate nonsense. You want to, again, bring this whole document to life. So I'm not afraid to write my own quotes. I want them, depending on the mood I'm trying to set. I want the quotes to sound urgent or upbeat, and other times concerned. Again, if that's hard to develop if you have other people actually doing the quoting. Now, I quote key people, and it's not always the top person, but often the main person driving the event. They deserve credit, and they deserve publicity for their efforts. So one of the quotes usually is whoever is the main person putting together this event. If you had somebody in a company that had developed a product, you might want to put a quote in from them. I try to get 2 or 3 quotes, but only from 2 different people. If you have 4 or 5 quotes and it's from 4 or 5 different people, again, that's just too much noise, and it's not cogent. It doesn't flow properly. But at least 2 people, I think, should be in the quotes, and they don't have to be very long. Be sure to add the title of the person you're quoting. Like you see the site manager, Frank DiCristina, and of course, executive director, Adriana Rodriguez. So we have to, that also gives it credibility, because now the reader knows exactly who is doing it. Now, this is, when I say, this is important. If you make up quotes, clear them with the person you're quoting, because if you don't do that, they may be uncomfortable with what you have written or the style you're using. But the worst thing that could happen, if you don't at least advise them of what you put in this press release, if you don't advise them, and somebody from the media happens to say, well, I think I'll call site manager Frank DiCristina and get some more information from him on why they decided to sponsor this 5K, and he has no idea what you've written, you have created a very awkward and embarrassing situation. So be sure you close the circle and you get a hold of the people that you've made, and have them look at the quotes, approve the quotes, and of course send them copies of the press release when you're finished. Now, one other thing I did, and I think I mentioned it before, and I will show you. In fact, why don't you go ahead, please, Julia, and put up the United Way, press release. And it's about today's event. I'll be darned. One thing I want, you'll see there, and I mentioned it before, that I use bullet points. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different mini events taking place, this being one of them. if I try to write that all in and get all that information out in a run-on sentence or a bunch of sentences in one paragraph, it would look cumbersome. It would be almost unreadable. If you're really wanting to describe, give a lot of detailed, specific information, like right you see in paragraph 4 down there, there's nothing wrong with writing bullet points. It's very common in business, and it helps the reader sort out everything you're trying to say. And the readability, and fewer words are used, so that it's really kind of a good way to, as you can see, I got a lot of information pulled right off of a document that Julia made for the press release. Now, notice that I'm going to confess something here. Notice that I did not necessarily follow the things I'm telling you to follow. I did that for a reason. We've written a lot of press releases to the Record Journal. They're the organization that I was specifically looking to publicize this event. And they've been so good to us, and they've given us so much information that there was no need for contact information. There was no need for strictly relying on the format. They know us. They know very well that they know everybody in the Record Journal knows Maria. So, and Diana. So there's no problem just going ahead, and you can play with it. And what you're trying to do is catch their interest. Okay, you can take that down if you will. I'm going to run through a few bullet points of my own on the boilerplate information. There has to be a paragraph that has information about your organization. Julia, I hate to do this, but would you throw up the SCOW one, please? You'll notice that the 5th paragraph down, it tells about the organization. This is really important. If you're writing to an organization, say it was Channel 30 and wherever they are, Farmington, they probably don't know SCOW. They probably don't. So you want to make sure they know something about the organization for which Allnex and Rome are sponsoring an event. And you'll see that there's a good deal of information there, just a paragraph. And I also put in another quote, see if I did it right. Yes, from Adriana, the executive director. And I really wanted to get the reader to understand how important this organization is, and how important this virtual 5K is as a fundraiser. So that's where you put in the purpose of the organization and information as to where you can go to get further information. You'll see at the bottom of this, I hope, and I know she did, I asked Adriana to add more information for Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I'm not a social media person, I confess. So the hashtags and all that stuff, I wouldn't do very well. So she hopefully finished up and put in more information that that the reporter or the media person or whoever's doing the reading of this can go if they need more information. And also, they know they know because they know how to get a hold of the SCOW, because it's printed on letterhead. Let's see what's left here. Oh yeah, sometimes it's very useful to add specific email addresses and phone numbers for specific people that can be called for more information. Often it's you. If you wrote the press release, you put in your own contact information. It may just be the name of the organization, the purpose of the organization. Now, don't make it long, and again, don't exaggerate. But that's an important paragraph to have. And as you'll see, if you refer back to that inverse triangle, you'll see that contact, that info about the organization is part of every good press release. Now, the number 5 is the contact information. The whole point of the press release is to get the reader to want more information. Web addresses, Facebook, and so forth, just like I sort of put in that one. You can take that down now. Thanks, Julia. And this is where email addresses go. Remember, if you're not printing this press release on a letterhead, this is where all that, that address, phone number, and so forth has to go. They've got to know how to get a hold of you. And so you want to make sure you finish up with contact, all kinds of contact information and places where they can get other information about your event or your organization. Now, those are the basics, and as you have seen from the 2 examples, I confess I deviate from time to time. As you saw, the United Way Day of Caring is a good example of that. Because of the generosity of the Record Journal and their familiarity with the United Way, you can relax a little bit. But for the most part, it allowed me to be a little less formal, change it up, and eliminate some of the boilerplate. And my last thought is this: have fun with this. You aren't trying to recreate the Gettysburg Address. It's a press release. The most important thing you can do is convey your pride in the organization you're working for, your enthusiasm for the event that you're putting together and writing about. If you relax when you're writing this, that will come through. That will come through. If you agonize, you better agonize over the headline. But if you agonize over every other word in the thing, it'll end up dull and lifeless. So relax and enjoy your writing, and show that, and you do that, and your enthusiasm will show through. And that is the end of the lesson, and I'm proud to say it's just at 45 minutes. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I'll give you an answer. It may not be right, but I'll give you an answer anyway. If not, I thank you very, very much. It's been an education for me. I promise you, as much as I hope it's been an education for you, it certainly has made me a better press release creator. There's never a day where we can't learn something, and I learned a great deal in doing the research I needed to do to write this 45-minute talk. So, Diana?
So, Steve, you write a press release, you send it over, you might have a contact person. if they don't do anything with it at that point, then what do you do?
There are times when there's not much you can do. You can become a real pest. And
Mhm.
that, in the long run, I think that can cause you more grief than it's worth.
Mhm.
If you have like, for instance, with the Record Journal, we know who the reporter is for Wallingford. We pretty much know who the reporter is for Meriden. Liz White has made the publisher has made herself available to people. But and so if they don't pick up your story, in most cases you just didn't make the cut. Not because you didn't write a good press release. It's just that they don't have room.
Mhm. Mhm.
But it's a personal. That's me. I wouldn't be too much of a pest, because I think in the long run, you lose credibility. If they know every time that you send a press release that you're going to hound the daylights out of them, that after a while they won't take your calls.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for asking that. Is there anything else that anybody wants to know? This was an honor to do. Oh yes, please.
I had a thought about that, Diana, too, about if you're trying to reach the same target audience that the Record Journal might be reaching, you could probably on social media, if you belong to any of these sort of Meriden groups or Wallingford groups, put your info out there as well. You might reach some of the same people.
Mhm.
That's a good idea, Chris.
You know?
That's a really good idea. Yeah, again, social media is not my platform, so I'm glad that you spoke up about that. I'm sure that Julia could do a whole presentation on social media. But I think that's a great idea. There are local forums, and I think that they would welcome this. It's a way to just keep spreading your information out.
Mhm. Mhm.
And we also sometimes send the press releases on blast emails to all our contacts. As Steve was saying, it's not supposed to be only for a printed newspaper. You just use it for to share with all your contacts.
Yeah, your blast emails. Is that what you're saying, Maria?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Again, use your imagination, and you can tell by the color of my hair that I've been around a few years, and I grew up with newspapers. So there are many other opportunities, and I'm looking forward to learning more about them as we write more press releases. So that was a good point.
I have a quick question. Would it make a difference if we start building a relationship with those who are involved with the Record Journal or any newspaper, local newspapers? First, that way we don't seem like a pest at some point, because, sometimes the information that we have is valuable. Maybe we haven't built our credibility, but it's important to start building that. So
Yeah.
what do you suggest in that case?
I try, to tell you the truth, if it's a local media, I would work at trying to set up an appointment to see that reporter. I would, if you're having a tough time getting through to them and they're not picking up any of your stuff, eventually you might just make it almost a social call, that you might just call up and say, look, I know you've heard from me before, but I see your articles in the paper all the time. Could we get together for coffee so you know me and a little more about my organization? If you have that kind of contact, if you do that, they love it. They may say no, but they'll remember you. So I think there is a medium ground, and I'm glad you brought it up, because there's a medium ground to reach, and some of it is like Maria harasses everybody. So I hope most of you know Maria. I trust all of you know Maria. And
Don't harass her.
nobody takes her calls anymore. No, but seriously, she is welcome almost anywhere. So she has developed those kind of friendships and friendly relationships, so that when Maria writes something or Maria's quoted in a press release, they're very likely to pick it up. But definitely keep working at it. Don't give up. Don't give up, because you have a good message. You've got important things you want people to know. It's important to get your story out, and especially if you're having a fundraising event. So you can be gently firm and pushy, but you'll know how to do it.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all very much. I'm honored to have had the opportunity to do this. And if there's anything I can ever help any of you with, if you want me to edit or proofread a press release you have, and you think I might be able to offer some suggestions, by all means, call Maria. No, I have an email address with the United Way, and I'm happy to help. It's fun to do. I enjoy doing it.
I'm typing the email address here.
Thank you, Maria.
Steve, thank you so very much.
Thank you so much,
So I
Steve.
wish all of you luck. Oh, you're welcome. I hope you learned a lot. And if I ever, as I say, I'll sign off by saying, if I can ever help any of you with this kind of work, I'll get Maria's permission to do it.
It's being recorded, so you have to.
All righty. Thank you.
Thank you,
guys.
everyone, for joining as well.
Thank
Yes,
you,
thank
everyone. Thank you, Ashley. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.
We're
Bye.
jumping in the
Bye.
4 o'clock to the 4 o'clock workshop.
Bye.
Uh-oh.